Perspective, an all too common topic for anyone that draws, the wonders and woes of beginner artists. If you're like me, you probably know how it all works, but you're still stuck in this phase where you're just pondering upon how to actually apply all of this theory into actual practice. Well, this vid is all about how I personally managed to do just that. Let's run through the basic rules really quickly before that, just so we're on the same page. So the first thing you gotta understand about perspective is that the horizon line, this thing here, yeah, it's just where the perceiver's eyes are. The classic definition is, the actual position of the horizon, but in the art world, it's literally just the position of the hypothetical camera or observer that is perceiving the scene. Think of every drawing you see as like a photo, and the horizon line is just the position of the camera that took it. I prefer this definition more because eye line can be a bit confusing, as in this case and in this context we're referring to the eye line of the observer in this specific point of view and not the eye line of you, the person observing the photo itself. And speaking of the view, as like a little side note, anything that is above the horizon line should not have its top plane visible. Like I definitely should not and cannot see the top part of this water bottle in my current position, and vice versa too. If I'm looking down something, I should not be able to see the underside of it in any circumstances. Saying this out loud makes it sound really obvious and like a big nothing burger, but it's easy to get lost in the midst of a drawing, and if you mess it up, you'll just break the entire drawing, so better safe than sorry, I guess. But yeah. This thing here, you put your vanishing points on, it's literally just position of the viewer's eyes or the camera, okay? If you can internalize this, good job. You're like halfway through understanding the basic principle of perspective already. On to the vanishing points, because they're the only thing left to talk about. Now their actual definition and the math behind them is quite a doozy, so I won't be going into it, but I'll recommend this bit by Phipps Art if you really want to know all of the inner working behind them. But for myself, and probably a lot of other artists too, I just view vanishing point as the end points of the dimensional axis, length, width, height. You've been through middle school, you know this already. Every object you draw comes with a set of three, because, we live in a three-dimensional universe. Everything is in three-dimensional, duh! You can verify this in literally any instance of the real world. Photos, or the room that you're watching this fit in right now. You have all sorts of objects with their own sets of vanishing points, situated on and off the horizon line, and all receding back into them in all sorts of manner and directions. One of the most common blunder we make as beginner is to have everything converge at exactly just 1 to 3 points, and while this is not really wrong or violating the rules of the universe, there's no doubt that it looks really fake and unnatural and stiff, right? But since we can't keep track of like 50 to 100 plus vanishing points and all of their convergences individually like the universe can, we'll have to settle for a middle ground here. What I personally do is to just have the majority of my subjects share the same 1 to 3 vanishing points, and then I sprinkle in a dozen or so small rebellious ones that just does its own thing and goes where it wants. This way your drawings can be varied and cohesive while still being realistic and not an absolute nightmare to draw. Lastly, I just want to clarify something a bit. These 3 mao perspective are actually just the same exact one. 1 point perspective is still 3 point perspective, except we deliberately choose to ignore the other 2 axes for the sake of convenience and simplicity. Same goes for 2 point perspective as well. We just choose not to bother with the other axis, but they very much still exist. Why are there 3 maos to begin with? I guess it's the same reason why you learn about 2D shapes in school first before moving on to 3D. It's just easier to understand, right? I say this because, first, that's just how reality works, and it's probably important to point that out. But also because I don't want you to think that there are some major fundamental differences between 2 and 3 point perspective or 1 and 3 point perspective, and that you won't be able to apply what you learn from one onto the other. It's very much the opposite of that, so don't worry. For me, personally, getting to just start simple with 2 points and ignoring that third depth axis before moving on to 3 and beyond makes it so much easier to just understand everything. It helped reduce so much confusion and clutter because in 2 point perspective, you only have to keep in mind of 2 things. First, if an object is parallel to the horizon line, then its sets of horizontal vanishing points are placed directly on the line, and its sets of vertical vanishing points are simply perpendicular to the line set. And in the case that it's not, then you can try do a little trick and just manifest an imaginary horizon line that is parallel to that object and apply the same exact rule above. And remember, you aren't restricted to just 2 vanishing points. Add as many as you can handle, and so long as they're following the rules correctly, you'll be fine. What you want to do is to draw a lot of very basic, simplistic, and honestly even boring looking background in 2 point perspective. Leverage your reference and even trace over them too to try and figure out how the perspective works and where the vanishing points are and where's the horizon line, all of that stuff. And then try and replicate it in your own original work. As you push yourself and rack up those mileage, you'll develop these finer intuitive understanding of the fundamental that is really hard to explain with just a YouTube video. I know the title will make it sound like there is some vague secret sauce that helped made it all click for me, but there isn't. I'm sorry, you've been clickbaited. It's just good understanding of the rules and a lot of practical practices. Back in 2004, I drew so many goddamn backgrounds that it's honestly a miracle that I'm only getting burnt out with them now. I think the reason why perspective feels so tricky to grasp is because you're often juggling all sorts of other fundamentals along with it. So like whenever you sit down to like practice it, it feels very overwhelming because you're getting distracted by all of these different things. But if you can just shut off all of the white noise and start with the very bare minimum and like laser focusing on the perspective itself, it really starts to feel manageable and honestly so much fun. Like even though these were mainly for practices, I honestly really enjoy drawing these little backgrounds. Once it clicks, it starts to become very therapeutic and neat because you're free to focus on just making a very cool looking drawing, right? Just focusing on like the actual act of drawing stuff out and adding details and doing the rendering and all of that pretty yada yada. Eventually you'll realize that you can just let go of all the precise math and measurements. Like seriously, don't these backgrounds here still read as believable backgrounds even though I literally eyeballed all of the perspective? And like this one didn't even have any vanishing points set up, yet everything still turned out, at least for the most part, pretty well, right? Like most thing in art, perspective also just operates under the rule of cool, and so long as you can make it appear convincing enough, you're free to just warp and exaggerate all you want. And honestly, semi-broken yet still believable perspective just looks way cooler than mathematically precise one in my opinion. Plus, isn't that what art is all about anyway, right? Just making cool and pretty stuff, not necessarily accurate or adhering to reality. All of the celebrated masters know this, and it's why their drawing looks so expressive and grand, just awe-inspiring. I think perspective is one of the most rewarding fundamentals in my opinion because you're able to, well first you're able to cash in very quickly compared to something like, I don't know, anatomy, which can take years to fully get comfortable with, and like also because of how impactful it is. Like seriously, it's probably like the top 2 most important fundamentals to get right if you want to draw anything with like a resemblance of depth. You probably should learn perspective. It's very low risk and high reward, so basically, stop sleeping on perspective, okay? Get learning. This video originally was going to be a lot shorter and honestly a lot more dry, but thanks to my impeccable foresight, I have figured out that it probably won't make for a very good video, so I decided to rework it into something that, God, I hope is more fun and enjoyable and just valuable to watch. I know perspective is like one of the most common art topic there is, but that's okay. I just want to throw my 2 cents into a well that is, well, overflowing with pennies already at this point. But whatever, who's even counting, right? Also, if you're wondering about the voice and like the general just presentation of this vid, is because I think I'm sick and like I'm kind of going through a lot of shit right now, so it's kind of hard to record these voiceover, okay?